I welcome you all for first class on mechanical behavior of materials. So in this slide, I have shown some of the structural applications where materials have been employed. The first picture shows a G blast furnace. The second picture shows turbine blades where material is being subjected to very high temperature. Third picture shows a rocket which is used in ISRO. Fourth picture shows a signature breach. And the fifth picture shows the body of a fast breeder reactor. So what is common in all these applications is that material is being subjected to varying conditions of stress, temperature, time, environment, etc. So we are going to deal with, in this class, we are going to deal with materials which are used as a structural members in engineering applications or load bearing components. You are aware that the materials uses has put us in different, we have used materials in different ages, and based on those materials, those ages are also named. Okay. So those are Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and Silicon Age. So what is bronze? Bronze is an alloy of copper or 10 to 12 atomic percent of tin. So the materials are classified into three categories, majorly three categories, that is metals, ceramics, polymers. The composite is nothing but a combination of metals, ceramics, and polymers. So in metals, I have included alloys or intermetallics. So alloys are nothing but a solid solution of two or more metals or elements. So these materials, we have different properties because of different characteristics of bonds present in them. So metals have metallic bonds, ceramics possess ionic or covalent bonds, polymers possess both covalent and secondary bonds. So based on this bonding, they show different properties or different behavior. So I have put like different properties such as stiffness in gigapascal and strength in megapascal. So you can see that metals and ceramics in this map shows a higher value of stiffness as compared to polymers, wherein strength also metals and ceramics show higher strength as compared to polymers. And composites, so when I have a composite of different these three combination, by using combination of three materials like metals or ceramics, ceramics or polymers, or metals or polymers, I can tune the properties of composite. So the title of this course is a mechanical behavior of materials. We have seen what are materials. Now we would like to know what is a behavior. To understand behavior, I would like to give an analogy. So let's say we have a hot and cold weather. Okay, so I call it as an environment, or in scientific term, I call it as a field. Okay, based on this external field, my behavior changes. So I would prefer a loose clothing in the summer and a woolen clothes in winter. So based on my external environment or field, my behavior has changed. Similar to this or analogous to this, materials also behave in the same fashion. So I define a behavior as a particular response of a material to given external influence. Okay. So mathematically I write it as R is equal to function of F, okay, where F is nothing but a field or external influence. So I can expand this R using a Taylor series. So remember, recollect the Taylor expansion, and I can write it as R equal to R naught plus the first derivative of R with respect to F at when F is equal to 0 into F, and I put it in with a higher orders in the similar fashion. Okay, so this R naught can be equal to 0 or may not be equal to 0. So when there is an external field, this R naught is a value of R or a response of a material when there is no external field. Okay, so this R naught can be 0. Let's consider the case of load versus displacement. So when there is no displacement, this load will be equal to 0. But let's say in case of magnetization, so we have we don't have external field, but still material can possess some magnetization. So in that case, R naught cannot be equal to 0. Okay. So what I do is I try to reduce down this long series or long expansion into a simple form using a linear response theory. What I'm doing in this is that I'm neglecting the higher order terms. So I can say that R is equal to R naught, which is a value of R when f is 0, and the first derivative which I'm considering over here of R with respect to f uh, into f. So I can say that R is a linear function of f. Okay. So that is why it is called as a linear response theory. So I modify this term as R equal to R naught P into f, where P I call it as a change in R with change in f. Okay, when f is tending to 0. So this is nothing but, this P is nothing but your materials property. So behavior of materials, we understand it as a response to an external influence or to an external field. Now, what is the meaning of mechanical? So we have seen that the response of materials, okay, to an external field. So when the external field is forces or load and the response of materials to it, I term it as a mechanical. So materials, as you know, that they undergo stresses or they experience stresses when undergoing deformation. So let's understand this. So I write this equation again, R is equal to R naught plus PF, and I give an example of Hooke's law, okay, where you know that stress is related to strain with some materials property. I call it as elastic modulus. The stress is nothing but a response to a strain, which is nothing but an external field or external stimuli which is applied on a material and related through an elastic modulus. So this is, I call it as Hooke's law. So I define stress as force upon area or strain delta L upon L. So for a present purpose, these have a very exhaustive meanings to it. We will see it in our upcoming lectures. So now this stress material experiences is a response to an external strain which is employed on a material, and this stress is related to strain using an elastic modulus. So what are different kinds of stresses material can undergo or material are subjected to? So I have seen this where the stress remains constant with respect to time. I call it as a static stress. Okay, this is a static stress. That is, it is not varying with respect to time. So there can be another response or another another way the stress can be employed on a material that in a short duration. Let's say I call it as delta T. In this delta T, I have subjected a material with a very high stress value. So I call it as a dynamic stress. There will be the third way the stress can be employed, which is cyclically moving. So I call it as cyclic loading. Okay. So given that the temperature remains constant, so you keep other properties constant. So I can write as stress, okay, as a function of strain, time, temperature. And there are other factors, but majorly we will be dealing with these three conditions when we try to understand the deformation or the mechanical behavior of materials. So in early days, the deformation was studied, and the classical example is Hooke's law. Okay, so in Hooke's law, what is being stated is like tensio sic vis. That means as the extension, so the force. So I need to understand the mechanical behavior of material. It's because of this material tetrahedron, where we can see the structure, processing, and properties are related to performance. Okay, and that can be characterized to different characterization techniques. Okay. So if you want to have a proper performance of a material, you need to understand its structure, processing, and properties. Okay. So we need to understand the mechanical behavior in terms of structure, processing, and properties. So let's consider for our class the load versus extension and stress versus strain. We have already defined the Hooke's law here, but let's understand in more detail. So let's say we have a member over here, okay, and which is subjected to a tensile load P and which is hinged at one end. Okay, so I have material which is hinged at one end. So this is a tensile loading. I may have another type of loading where I just put a load in a reverse way and the material will experience a compressive stress. So let's say the member has a length L and area A1, and is subjected to load P, and it undergoes some extension called delta L1. Now I have another member of the same length. I subject it to same load P, but its cross-section area is A2, which is more than A1, and it will also elongate under a load, and I call the elongation as delta L2. Now I consider another member with a higher the more cross-section area A3 with same loading condition and length, and it undergoes an extension. I call it as delta A3. Now when I try to plot load versus displacement for these three conditions, what I see is that I keep a load constant. So I mark it over here, I keep a load constant, and I can see that as the cross-section area is increasing, the displacement is decreasing. So I experimentally find that as more the area, the less will be the displacement. Okay. So what I see that the load versus displacement behavior depends on the dimension of materials. Okay. So what I mean by that is, as I increase the area, the extension decreases. Okay. So for a smaller area, the extension was larger. Okay. So from this figure, I cannot figure out what is the material's behavior. What do I mean by that? So when I use a different dimensions of a material, it shows a different load versus displacement curve. So every load versus displacement curve, then I have to mention its cross-section area and length. So here comes the idea of dimensionality normalization. What I mean by that is I normalize my force with respect to area. So I call it as stress. So I take a stress, I define it as force per unit area. Similarly, I normalize this elongation based on the original length. I call it as a strain, which is nothing but the change in length upon original length. I call it as E is equal to delta L upon L. Now, I see a stress versus strain plot, and I can see that when I plot this, all these data points which I have generated as a load versus displacement will fall on one line, and this makes sense. Now this can be used to understand the behavior of material, okay, and it is independent of dimensions. So what I defined earlier was an engineering stress, which is nothing but applied force upon initial cross-section area, and engineering strain, which is nothing but the change in length upon original length. So what are the units of this? You know the unit of load is force, displacement is meter, area becomes meter square, stress is force per unit area, that is nothing but Newton per meter square, or I can write it as Newton per mm square. Okay. I call strain as delta L upon L, which is nothing but meter upon meter and remains dimensionless. Okay, so you have a stress which is defined as 1 Newton per meter square, and the another unit is Pascal. Okay, so 1 Newton per meter square is 1 Pascal, and 1 Newton per millimeter square is 1 megapascal. So there are some conversions from these units, 1 kPa is equal to 10 to the power 3 pascals. Similarly, 1 GPa is equal to 10 to the power 9 pascals. So the unit of stress, we have seen it as MPa, okay, and the engineering stress will remain dimensionless. So when I consider a Hooke's law, which is nothing but a stress related to strain through Young's modulus. So unit of stress is MPa. This remains dimensionless, and E remains as MPa. Okay, so we don't write it E in MPa, we write it in GPa. Okay, so I would like you to find out what are the dimensions of stress and Young's modulus. So with this, I would end this talk on units of stress and strain.